I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Future Signal. We are back. This is the OG crew of Not Crypto Bros. We're here. We're going to keep it as professional as we can in the world of Degens and Grant's unofficial title as Chief Degenerate Officer, Chief Degen Officer. I don't even know where to start. We were going on different threads in the behind the scenes here. Aussie or Jacki, I'd actually love to check in and see what you guys are doing with Web3. So, Jacki, do you want to run first? We can kick off there, and then there's a holy host of stuff for us to talk about because so much has happened since the four of us have actually been on mic. I think it's been since the four of us have been on mic. We've had multiple calls, but it's been almost a year, which is a long time in crypto. Even this last 2 weeks, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So, Jacki, do you want to take the floor first? You can take it in any direction. You can talk about what you're doing. I just figured we'd give you the space and the time so we have this on wax.
Oh, thank you very much. You're such a gentleman. Yeah, actually, it's been a really cool 2025 so far, all things considered. But at least for me, like I've been really branding out my wellness brand that I've had for a while. I started that in 2018. And it was really a space for me to deal with the overwhelm in life. Like I was learning a lot of new things. I had just gotten my MBA. It was like a crazy time. I discovered meditation for the first time. And through that whole process, I ended up getting certified. I've run hundreds of people through meditations. I've worked with different businesses and groups. And I got away from it for years. And recently people were like asking me if I had done it again or was still doing the classes and that. And funny enough, I went to Consensus and it was the first time that I was not sponsored by anyone else. So I went as Wellness Productions and I got to talk about like a meditation community and how I originally saw this going when I started to picture tokenizing it, some way, somehow, which is a tricky thing to do in the health and wellness space. Grant, I think you could probably speak a lot to that. People are setting like personal goals. Like, do you really want to tokenize these things? So it's been an interesting chapter, and I'm still working with some other professional groups. I'm still with Blue Carbon Farm. Been traveling around, staying up to date on regulatory and compliance, and figuring out exactly how to tokenize things in an ethical way that aligns with our choose your own globalization narrative that's happening right now. So never a dull moment.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't want to turn this into an interview of you, but everything you just said is fascinating because tokenization is slowly taking over, and I'm sure Aussie will talk about this as well when he talks about what he's been working on. Tokenization is the word. I would say it's the most used word right now in crypto, other than maybe stablecoin. And the tokenization of real world assets, the tokenization of just maybe putting, I could see, for example, I could see a day where Tesla stock, for example, isn't just only, basically available, honestly, to a certain select amount of people. You can go on and get Tesla that's tokenized. And I just think that that's going to be really, really fascinating. And for someone who, Grant was actually just down visiting me in Colombia. I think he had a good time. It was nice. We were in Bogota, Medellin. But, many people down there, when you look at people who are going to be talking about money, so if they're financial mentors, first of all, you got to get through the budgeting. Then you got to get through, okay, what are your goals? But then when you get to the point of like investments, if you look at even like the Colombian Stock Exchange, there's only so many things that you can invest in, and they may not even have access. So I think the idea of letting anyone who can have access to blockchain, which I think is more people in the world, have access to something like Tesla is absolutely fascinating. From okay, I'm in Colombia. I don't have access to buy all of these stocks because I don't have a Robinhood account, or I can't create one because I'm not a US citizen. But now all of a sudden I can get this Tesla that's tokenized. I just think that that's super powerful. Now, that's all of my preamble to ask you about the ethicalness, the ethicality, what's the word? The ethics of what you were saying of tokenizing in our different, oh God, I miss Grant. In our different views or use of perspectives or visions of what globalization is. So what are some of the things that you are thinking about when it comes to tokenizing a community or tokenizing, you even said someone's like personal development goals? What are the things that you're thinking about? And more specifically, what chain for you aligns best with the project?
So specifically, like number one, hands down, I have always said since I've gone into blockchain, I would never do to someone else what I wouldn't do to myself. So what do I mean by that? In a lot of projects, they'll make claims like anti-human trafficking or anti-slavery. And, the way they verify that is like, oh, we're going to take a picture of these farmers every day to prove they're still in this location, or like, that's not something I would personally submit to. So that's not something that I would expect someone else to do. For me, I think the digital ID portion is where this is all going to get really sticky. And to your point of like tokenization, I come from a strong union background where everything was in contracts, where your labor was contractual, everything you worked and did. And to a lot of ways, that meant everything was measured. We have to figure out, how does the best worker perform? And, then how do we include everybody around that, or kind of all of those things. So I've seen it on both sides. I've seen it get abused, and I've seen it be a standard for productivity itself. And I think those are probably the most, like, where it actually touches human beings, tokenization, that is, that's definitely where I spend the most time for myself, from a labor rights perspective, I guess. And then to your second question about what chain, right now, I think anything that's interoperable, I love what Cosmos is up to. I've been sort of following them. They're not like a super, well-known chain, I guess, in like the average world. But they've always been like, interoperability was always their like, main thing. I think we've talked a little bit about this ETH resurgence that we're going to see. They have a very strong foundation. To be honest, like Ethereum and Bitcoin and maybe Dogecoin. I talk about Doge every time I'm on, but I did some research on it the other day. I was like, let me just check back in with the dog and see what's up. But yeah, there's so many considerations when choosing a blockchain. I don't want to eat up too much time, but I think I still gravitate towards the ones that have the strongest foundation right now.
Yeah, I think that. So for people that don't know, was working at Compass Mining, and now and I finished up that chapter. Super grateful for everything, because I got to learn about Bitcoin mining, which I still think is probably one of the coolest sectors growing in the world right now. And I am now, however, at Blockworks. And so at Blockworks, I support two podcasts. And one of those podcasts is Empire with Jason Yanowitz. And the other one is actually Expansion with Mike, those are the two co-founders of Blockworks. And Jason had posted a tweet the other day, and I could bring it up. I could shuffle through and probably find it on X, that basically he was with some bankers the other day. And let's see. Well, what did he say? He said something like, to the bankers, there's only 4 actual cryptocurrencies, and the rest is just like everything else. And they are Bitcoin, Ethereum, I want to say XRP, and then I want to say
Tether.
Solana.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, leaving the stable coins aside, right? Obviously the stable coins but as far as like chains that you can like do different things on, those were like the 4 things. And that was a really interesting, and some people hated that and some people didn't, but it's really interesting to think that Ethereum is still very much in the crypto zeitgeist. It is still the thing that is at the base and the foundation. And actually on Empire today, an episode came out, and it was with the CEO of Polygon Labs and the CEO of Polygon Foundation. And they both basically said, look, we still need ETH. ETH is a huge part of the ecosystem. We can't do what we do without ETH. And basically no one's come up with a better solution that's as decentralized and as big. This isn't just market cap. This is overall community as Ethereum. Now that could change over the next cycle. And I think Aussie can honestly weigh in and dive in there. But Grant, I'm going to pass the mic to you to pass the mic to Aussie. Do you want to ask Aussie about what he's up to? Because we have all seen behind closed doors some of what Aussie has been doing. And but I haven't heard anything for a while. Grant, when was the last time you had a check-in with Aussie on what he's
We haven't.
Because he's really quiet, and normally he's not this quiet.
No. No, yeah, normally he's not this quiet. That means he's actually grinding on something good. No, I just a quick preface or a bridge maybe to the comment on tokenization, the sidelining of stable coins, but then to bridge to Aussie's project. So he's probably going to be the expert in residence here. We've all seen Walmart, Amazon, and I heard of another one this morning announcing their own stable coins. And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, But I thought the Genius Act actually put guardrails on private companies being able to do their own stable coins. And I was going to pose a question to the experts in residence on this, who are not me, maybe Aussie, maybe Jackie, maybe you, Jarrett, that are these actual stable coins, or are they tokenizations of these companies? And then I thought about it. I'm like, no, they're just trying to circumvent Visa. And it was an article about how Visa's on its basically been put on its back foot from a boxing metaphor perspective, where they're going, wait, these major companies are trying to launch their own stable coins to, yes, get around credit card fees and basically take that revenue back to themselves. So this topic does have me intrigued. So Aussie, is there any bridge from the concept of stable coins, tokenization, and the private companies launching their own stable coins with your project? Maybe give us the high level overview, and then we can bridge that afterwards.
There's a lot of bridges right there. Stable coins a little bit less because of the fact that, yes, stable coins are probably the thing that's going to grow the quickest on chain in the next 3 years, probably. But from a tokenization perspective, we're building for the tokenized future. My project is all about taking essentially index funds, ETFs, whatever you want to call them, and bringing all of that technology and that opportunity on chain. So taking, for example, if we were talking about tokenized Tesla before, take tokenized Tesla stock, tokenized Walmart stock, tokenized oil, and Solana, for example, and you could all pair that all together in a basket and create your own weighting and create your own index that way, and you could make it available to anybody. You could have it private just for yourself, or you can make it available to anybody to follow along with you. And as we're all creators, it's one way that we're looking at empowering creators to have alternative forms of revenue. So if you're a fin influencer working the finance space or the blockchain space, or even like kind of overlapping the two, if you give that kind of advice rather than having your private group or your private community that where you have to charge extra for access, why don't, and you have to spend more time, why don't you just create an index with your portfolio that you can update, and you earn fees from people participating, buying in to your index because they believe in your portfolio, they believe in the quality of your information. So the higher quality you are as an influencer, as a creator, the more you can earn as well.
So let me say back to you what I think you're saying. Your platform is an index generator.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so you're not doing the tokenization. You're letting someone, for lack of a better term, stake whatever they're holding or whatever they want to turn into an index, and they stake it in essence?
Not really staking. We're part of what we're taking advantage of is actually using existing liquidity pools on chain. So rather than staking or whatever, we're acting like real indexes. So just like anything that, just like the NASDAQ, if you were to try to buy VTI, we're doing exactly what VTI would do. VTI, you buy VTI, VTI goes and buys the assets that it needs to represent its basket, so that it's holding one for one all of the value that's in the index. And as the value of those assets go up, so does the value of your index. And as those assets go down, the value of those assets go down, so does the index. And we're going not just staking, we're really kind of all aspects. And you can do it right now. We're just using Solana. You can just buy with Solana, but we're also going to be enabling just buying with USDC.
So I can come in and say that I want to build an index around flavored glue and flavored glued companies. And I can what, just search for them? Like, what is the actual, what's the UX of this? Like, how do I actually go in there and you generate this? And then am I the fund manager, or smart contracts the fund manager?
Actually, yeah. And Aussie, let me add on to what Grant's asking, because I really like this question. Can you do this more in a hypothetical, and then Brian Naughton also has a comment. I want to get to that. I smiled
Yeah.
at that. Brian, hope you're doing well. Aussie, let's assume Grant is the Finfluencer, #Finfluencer. And Grant is out and he's only hawking, let's just use the examples we've already mentioned. He's hawking Tesla, he's hawking his own coin, right? Because you were saying that you could meme that and then put that in the basket. And then Grant is also super bullish on I don't know. I'm trying to think on Microsoft because of OpenAI. So he's got Microsoft, Tesla, and his own coin. You're saying, correct me if I'm right, that, or if I'm wrong, that Grant could then take that, put those three in a basket, and then that will be the Sparks index. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay. With that being right, now talk to us about what Grant asked, because I think it's the most important thing. Who is the manager of this? Who owns the contract? Who's holding custody of this? Or is it just kind of like, yeah,
It's not a managed fund, right?
So, okay, let me break this down in a level to different levels.
Yeah.
From a fund management perspective, from being able to edit the index, Grant, you have that ability. You would have that ability to edit as the creator your index makeup. So let's say you change your mind or you want to change your allocation on something, you can do that. From an asset perspective, the assets are held in the smart contract on chain, so they are they're safe and stored there. You can't Grant can't go remove them. Grant has no direct access to any of the assets that if you were Jarrett were going to go buy it, your Grant can go pull the assets that represent your tokens in the index. So your shares of that token, he couldn't go pull those assets out. He can rebalance them, but the rebalancing is done via the smart contract. So Grant will never touch your funds, and neither will us as a platform. It lives in our smart contracts, and we do have emergency functions if we need to recover funds if something breaks, but Grant himself can manage that. Jarrett, I see your face is very.
I have like so many questions because I'm understanding 95% of it, right? So, but there's 5% that's missing, and 19 out of 20 isn't 20 out of 20. So I'm not seeing it fully. But Jackie, do you have any question here? Follow up before I.
So when you say you're not the custodian, like how would things actually move then if someone did want to like when you said rebalance, like what does that look like?
So
from a technical standpoint,
there's a UX that Grant could access, and it's linked to his profile and linked to that ETF, to that index or that basket. He can then go edit the base values. So he can either right now you can set things to 0. You can't actually fully remove them. Small technical thing with Solana smart contracts right now. But he could add tokens or change the balance. Let's say he wants to up the allocation of Tesla. Right now Tesla's weighted at 18%. He wants to make it 25% of his portfolio. He could go do that, and then that would allow it to then, once that change is all made and registered on the UX, it would push to the smart contract, which would then go and make the changes. It would go swap whatever he lowered the percentage of into Tesla in order to make bring the assets into balance with the settings that he established.
That's good.
Okay. So let me. Okay, so let's go with that. You have. I think we said Solana, Microsoft, and then Grant creates his own meme coin that he puts in this basket. And let's just, for simplicity's sake, it's a third. Grant's meme coin, however, starts to really drop off. So he sells some of his Tesla and he gets it up to 45, and only 10% for his meme coin. So 45% Microsoft. If I hold Grant's index, I actually don't have to do anything. He just rebalanced And then what I can do is I could go get more shares of his index if I like what he did, or I can go sell shares of his index of the token of the Grant index token, the GIT, if I don't want that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. Now this is all in Solana.
Right now, it's only on Solana. The MVP, our smart contract is done. We just passed audit. We're going through our final testing, and we're looking at going live early August. The smart contract is is already done. Most of this all works already, and so we're just waiting on testing and some final stuff.
You know what's interesting about this? all of the devil's advocate thoughts that pop into mind as we're describing this, they're already kind of answered. For example, Tesla's not tokenized, so like it's going to be a very limited set of offerings. But you've already said no, we're preparing for the tokenized future, and I'm like, nope, that's legit. You're not worried about tokenization. There's going to be plenty of platforms and already we've seen. I mean, heck, when we did our own event, we were doing this with not Homebase DAO, but whoever had their homes were being fractionalized and tokenized. And
it was Homebase. It was Homebase.
Was it Homebase?
Yep.
So that's already happening. So there's a lot of foresight. It's funny though, Aussie, as you're talking about this, and I'm having flashes of each of the little startup ideas you had, and I'm seeing slivers of them from most each of them assembled into this finally very coherent, cogent idea that also has the fortuitousness of being exceptionally timely. Some of the ideas we did in the past, like Schedule.me, in hindsight, I think we missed the timing, not the idea. And many startups talk about the luck of the timing. So I guess I just wanted to take that moment to applaud you for being as persistent in the failed attempts to get here, because I would, before any financing, before funding, like I would actually stand up and applaud this concept because it's truly novel. I wrote in the comments to everyone, this sounds like a highbrow pump.fun because it has this appeal. It has this appeal that I'm smart enough, like Bridgewater, to assemble, whatever I thought was a good tokenized basket or fund, and I could reap those rewards, but it's also relatively rug free. So I like that. Go ahead, Jackie.
So to your point, to piggyback on that, like is there any vetting you're doing of someone putting a portfolio together? Do they have to have any sort, or can they just kind of like go off and this is like influencers and finfluencers, which is super hard to say in the wild?
Just say, let's simplify it. It's finfluencers.
I know it's still hard. It's 2 F's. Influencer.
Yeah. So we're not necessarily vetting each creator on each person going out there to make a basket. We are somewhat limiting the access of what tokens are available on the platform. So your $30,000 meme coin that just graduated from pump.fun is not accessible on the platform because there's so many rug risks with that particular token.
Mm-hmm.
But we aren't necessarily vetting each individual index or each individual
so the scrutiny
creator
is on the token, not the influencer.
Exactly. So that way we can't control everyone that comes to use the platform, but we can make sure that we're not including things that are a major risk in that basket to be a rug.
What about regulatory controls, my man?
Oh, we are working pretty hard on regulatory controls and compliance. There's quite a few things that we're working on, and I don't want to dive too deep into that.
Okay.
But we are definitely regulatory control and those types of management features are all coming into place. Some of it that we're talking about is, let's say, Grant, you were to initiate a rebalance. There would be a potential waiting period, so a delay period of potentially up to 7 days, where the rebalance wouldn't be fully initiated until the end of the 7 days. So it would be done gradually, so that in case let's say you were hacked, Grant, and you weren't the one that did that, made the change, you could flag it and say, hey, this change wasn't what I did. Or maybe you went from your basket was just Microsoft and Tesla, and then you decided to start adding very random tokens that weren't, or assets that weren't at all aligned with your portfolio composition beforehand. And that allows users to flag and say, hey, this isn't the portfolio. This isn't the same basket or portfolio strategy that was previously here. This is probably better off as a new portfolio or a new index basket. And it protects those users as well. It gives double-sided protection. Go ahead, Jarrett.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have so many questions. This is so great. One of the things I think that is just going to continue to march towards the world is the mix of finance and social. And I can
Yes.
totally foresee where James Cramer is going to have the Cramer token, and you're going to either buy it or not. I mean, I know that there's already like the inverse Kramer, but like once this is tokenized, it's going to get really crazy. And it's going to allow anyone who's got a couple good ideas on the internet to be able to put stuff. Obviously, I love how you said, hey, what we're going to do is make sure that we're not putting any grenades or, AR-15s in the sandbox. We're going to make sure people can't hurt themselves. We're going to start with, I don't know, maybe 30 or 50 that you've curated. And then from there, you can always add more. I think being able to add stuff onto the platform is a really, really impressive thing. I'm working on something right now, and it has to do with Bitcoin mining. And as I think about adding new miners to the platform, it could be interesting, right? Because if you just, one of the most fascinating things I think, if you're into crypto, is I think I'm blanking on the X handle, but it's like Coinbase's new add-on tokens or coins or whatever. And if you just watch that, you'll know what's going to hit their platform 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and you can basically front run that, because anything that hits Coinbase historically has gone up like 20 or 30% in the first day. So if you're into leverage, not saying that you should, yes, maybe it's Coinbase Ventures. Yeah. Anyways, it's one of the best if you're really looking at crypto stuff. So this is fascinating. Aussie, I don't want you to tell us a name because I'm sure you're still working that out, or if you're not, you want to keep that under wraps. I want to ask you, what are the considerations of tokens that you're going to put in this? And the reason why I ask is because Blockworks, once again, I'm shilling Blockworks today. It's permissionless week, everyone. Blockworks just came out with a token transparency framework, which is really quite interesting. And it's basically going to be the S1 for tokens. And this is really going to like push regulation forward. And people from Blockworks went down and they met with the SEC. And the SEC was like, this is great. Now we have like an actual framework to basically create transparency for tokens. So that way there will start to totally be, okay, these tokens have gone through this process and these haven't. Oh, why hasn't yours gone through? Oh yeah, I'm going to do it. And if you don't, my feeling is if people actually don't start to do that, they're just going to look super shady, And so I think when you apply the token transparency framework, and maybe that's what you guys even use as the rubric. It's already been done. Blockworks is doing it. They've invested money into that. You could use that and say, if you want to be on our platform, you have to get a certain score, and then you can come on our platform. It's the same way B corporations work. B corporations have a bunch of stuff, and I think it's up to 80 points, or at least it was up to 80 points. And you basically have to, fill that out to get in. I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the private chat, but before we do that, I just wanted to shout out Brian Naughton's thing. He said, tokenized oil and Solana sounds like meme coin gold. Obviously, Brian was being a little sarcastic here, but I totally do think that the future will be defined. Like when you think about certain layer ones, it's going to be like, okay, are we going to go on Solana or are we going to go on Ethereum? And which one's going to be better for us and why? And I could even foresee a future where there's like Microsoft on Solana and Microsoft on Ethereum and other, and other chains. So I don't know. Aussie, you're shaking your head.
I honestly don't believe that there's going to be a version that's on Solana, a version that's on Ethereum.
You think there's one?
There's just one, and I think that the future is truly cross-chain. The technology is there for the most part. There is some missing layers that aren't maybe fully developed quite yet. The ag layer, as you talked about, that is definitely, once that is fully operational and fully interconnected, could be the real cross-chain layer of the future. But even right now with Wormhole and Layer 0, there's quite an easy way for tokens to exist on multiple chains.
Yeah.
Right now, there are singular points of failure, but those platforms exist. And so whether you're using wrapped tokenized Microsoft on Solana or wrapped tokenized Microsoft on ETH, they're the same thing, and you could easily work in that tokenized future.
It will end up abstracted. Like I really do.
That is our goal. The entire future is that chains are abstracted, and our entire platform is actually being built with the idea that chain doesn't matter.
And actually, like the idea of Layer 0 and Wormhole and these concepts, to me, I've been working a lot with AI agents lately, and we have this phrase, just like tokenization. There's a parallel here in the AI agent world. Every level of datum you'll be able to talk to. So a random project I'm working on right now is like, I see a snake plant behind Jacki, right? You should be able to talk to your plants. Do you need water? And it should be able to talk to you and give you data. And so we're working on a sensor project where you have this chat GPT style interface with a plant, but then it gets abstracted to the next level where you should be able to talk to your garden. And so these kind of tiers of aggregated data we've been working with vector databases, basically, which have been around for a while, but deployed on the AI level, it's huge. When you think about Layer 0 and cross-chain compatibility, each chain having different layers, different components, it by default turns into this aggregated vector database, in effect, like a de facto like it's further decentralization, in my opinion, of the data itself. And I see that as a strong feature. But when you said you're building for that, is there any layer of nuance you could share on, like, is it just your intentionality with your project to encourage it, or do you have architecture that lends itself towards that?
Right now, the architecture and the MVP that is going to be going live in August doesn't include the cross-chain compatibility yet, but the entire architecture that is planned for MVP +1 and +2 is all with first wallet abstraction, chain abstraction in mind, and cross-chain compatibility.
That's great.
So we're going to be looking at how can we have baskets that include tokens that are on Solana, AVAX, Ethereum, Base, and you can buy it on Arbitrum. And that experience, and you don't even know, you can't even tell where you're buying it from or the fact that they're on different chains.
Arbitrum.
Austin, you're really getting Grant excited. Sorry, Jacki, go ahead.
What'd you say,
no,
Jacki?
I put like a huge bag in Arbitrum, and then it just totally fell off the map. So I was like, oh my God, someone mentioned it.
So someone
talk about Arbitrum.
That Arbitrum. Give me a little Arbitrum pump. Let's go. So this is a pretty powerful idea, Aussie. I applaud you. I cannot emphasize, like, the nuance to this is pretty insightful, bro.
Wow. We've been working at this for 9 months. This has been a grind that I have been on for 9 months. We started working on it in October. And our smart contract got finished a couple months ago, but we've been going through audit for the last fixing for audit for the last couple of months, and we're finally nearing the finish line. It's been quite a process to get here, but I'm really excited.
Aussie, I love it. I want to dive deeper into this off mic, and I just think that now some of the network I'm slowly starting to build is going to be very beneficial to this project. And I'm excited to hear the name, because the name is very important. When I first saw Pump.fun, I was like, that's stupid. And that was not stupid. That was easy for people to remember. And that blew up. I want to shift a little bit and talk to Grant about what he's been up to, because Grant, for those people who don't know, has more than a decade plus building websites. But it sounds like as of late, Grant, is the move. Here's the question. Are all website builders, not all website builders, what do you think is the percentage of website builders right now that are making the shift like you kind of have and are starting to build agents over websites, because they're probably adding more value to the end user and you're also getting that demand?
Currently, the context for Aussie and Jacki and anyone watching, we've had a website company since 2013. It's been a lifestyle business many times for me, so I just kind of let it ride. And then sometimes I step in and grow it, and it's fantastic, and I feel like I could build websites forever. But I have noticed a waning in my closing ratio has gone down dramatically, and I'm still the cheapest in my markets, the most affordable with the same deliverables, and we're seeing a decline even of my lowest pitches. And Jarrett's alluding to the fact that suddenly over the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, I've sold more revenue and I have more AI agents in projects than I do right now than websites. And fun fact, what changed for AI agents was not AI. It was UX. Because N8N delivered a UX like me and Jacki were experimenting with make.com, which was decent, not great. We were messing with Zapier. Zapier has not improved its UX much at all. But N8N came along with a UX that for building something as complex as an agent felt as simple as ChatGPT felt. And so to answer your question now, Jarrett, that's context. The answer to your question is most website designers are not making this change. They're floundering. And for background, I have at this point 275 regular clients I talk to on the regular, and they are struggling mainly because they are diehard Adobe users. They didn't flex to go to Canva, and that same mental block of flexing with new technology, they're staunch. AI can't build something as good as me. I would have agreed a year ago. I would have agreed a year and a half ago. Not today. I'm sitting on AI now. And mind you, background, the first AI website platform I was on was grid.io in 2013. This has been around. This is not new. But it was trash and it accelerated in the last 18 months to the degree that, yeah, I can produce an entire brand that's respectable with slight modifications and still give it the grant creative stamp of approval. Like that's legitimately creative and good and unique. So to answer your question, the website developers who have embraced AI are making this change, Jarrett, because the value. So there's two things going on. There's the increase of value that AI can provide. There's the decrease in value to SEO. How many of you have searched something and saw Google's experiment with the AI conversation? From an SEO perspective, this has wrecked nearly all SEO efforts. Now, flip that. I now have an AI agent that writes a blog post every day on my website, and I've seen an increase. I just did a video today on this. I've seen an 8% increase in 1 week on my traffic because I've been posting every day regularly blog content on my website that's AI generated. And I tried this 3 years ago and it was horrible outputs. I'm trying it now and they blow it all out of the water. It's phenomenal outputs and it's helped. Yes.
It's like school. I know you have to go soon, so I just have one question for
Yeah.
you. I think what's so interesting, so I've been using ChatGPT for years now, experimenting with stuff. And lately I've noticed that when I can tell something is a ChatGPT post, like totally unedited, I just stop reading it. Like, even if I respect the person and know them or whatever. And it's like this weird like moment where I thought AI, and like, I still use AI a lot, but like, what is your advice to people about like, it's not just one text prompt sometimes, or it's not like you have to, futz with this stuff until it knows you and like can be authentic. And even going back and editing and curating it, I guess like what would be your takeaway on that?
So a paradigm shift on this is blog writing with AI is not for human readers. We do not care if you stop reading. It's for Google. You're writing for a computer. You're literally writing
We're in synchronicity or whatever.
You're literally writing computer to computer. So you're waging SEO wars with an AI to an AI. And I am fine with that ethically. What you're talking about, which I do agree with, there's major studies, and we have the data that it's like when readers read AI to human articles and they don't know the source of the article, AI articles are only read 20% of the time versus the baseline of human articles. And there's an unconscious knowing. I present for your consideration, in the next 9 to 12 months, no one will be able to tell.
I disagree. And only because, and like to your point, I agree that AI is so important. It can get a blanket of things done really quickly that you couldn't do otherwise.
Yeah.
There was, though, and I will pull it up and I'll find this. I'll even post it in the link. But there was a study done of people standing in front of the actual Mona Lisa, and in front of like a total like reprint of it that looked exactly the same that you wouldn't know. And I think they did like an EFM, like an energy frequency thing, measuring it, and like it was so much stronger. Like people somehow knew that this was the real Mona Lisa. And so I think it's nuanced, and I think it's not like this like totally over, but I think it does exist that humans seem to, even through digital means and screens, identify that human element somehow.
The reason I say you won't be able to tell is not because I think AI will be so awesome. The reason I think you will not be able to tell is because I think humans are filtering out, because they sense the volume of BS being put into the world. They're reading less, they're skimming, they have shallow thinking, and they're not engaging. And though I have seen that same study talking about the Mona Lisa, I totally agree. If I was forced to sit down and actually give the time dedicated to finishing an article, I would just be able to tell. And I do believe in that feature of the human dynamic, but I believe that most users that matter, the volume of users, which is what matters to the metrics, which is a misaligned metrics. I think it's horrible, but most of them are just skimming headlines, and they don't care if it was AI generated or human generated. And that's what I mean, that we won't care, because they'll know, but they won't care.
But people who care will care.
The people who care will care, but usually the people who care don't matter from a metrics perspective, because the people who care
means a lot.
No, it does. And me too. I'm an artist at heart. And I recognize, like, it's a paradox that I'm struggling with. But this is why I think so this is the parallel that I think matters to crypto and technology, a future signal anyway. And that is one thing that we're learning about AI is, even though we will have AGI and do have AGI right now, I personally believe that's not what matters. It'll impact everything. Like, I mean, I don't want to trivialize it. But to consumers, which is generally who we're talking to and working for day in and day out, is consumers, the consumer mind. Single purpose AI agents are the most powerful. You never want to create an AI agent that does a little bit of this and a little bit and can write articles and then source articles. If I were to be writing blogs for you, Jackie, or for some company, I would probably, for one single blog post, I would easily have 10 to 20 separate agents. Because the mega prompts you can do, and you can even eliminate hallucinations with these, but I'm into full like multi-page mega prompts for every single AI, but I do that to get narrower and narrower and narrower. Total sidebar, me and an AI wrote a spiritual tome on how to meta prompt AIs. And I asked it, you are the overseer of future AI, and I need you to write a mystical document that's sacred to AI and it wrote a mega prompt. It's nuts. It blew my mind. It wrote this mega prompt of different utility. But what surprised me about this, it wrote multiple sub agents for different components of spirituality. And so they're single purpose agents. And so my point is I think that this very superficial dilemma that we've had, like, this article sucks. It's because someone tried to write a single agent to write articles, as opposed to fractionalizing it, kind of like a vector database. We're learning that we should fractionalize things in order for our brains to conceive it, in order for AI to be able to do an excellent job at that component. And then there's an assembly AI, and that assembly AI synthesizes all of that into an article. That's the level that at that point, when that's kind of the norm, that's when we won't even be able to tell or care if we can tell. It'll just be giving us the information we want. What's that, Jarrett? You were shaking your head like, what the?
No, that's first of all, I want to be really respectful of your time. Do you need to go right now, Grant?
You need to cut out. If this is the appropriate moment, I do need to bail. But now we're talking about super cool shit, because I'm interested on how Aussie's going to work with AI and people like Aussie.
That's where the conversation. That's where I'll take the conversation right now. And that's kind of where I wanted to go. So,
well, okay,
Grant,
you have me interrupt, but I'll be watching from the car. See you guys. I love you guys. We'll talk soon.
Drive safe, Grant.
Drive safe.
I did want to pick up with what Grant is talking about and just kind of ask you guys, and really with wellness and then Aussie, your project, how are you guys incorporating AI? Because like I'm working on 2 projects right now, and I'm working more than that, but there's a couple projects, and it's pretty vibe coding heavy, and I just the story in my head right now is anyone who's in crypto, who's around AI, is probably vibe coding something, and on some
I'm
level, and so yeah.
Potentially vibe coding something right now.
Yeah, literally. So, Aussie, what do you how has AI played a role in getting this business off the ground?
In our case, it's given us a lot of guidance, and we didn't vibe code. The MVP is not vibe coded for a few reasons. We did end up actually hiring actual developers and going the traditional route. In our case, but we are leaning more and more into vibe coding, especially as now that we're bringing on a full-time developer in house. That's so introducing vibe coding as part of our workflow is going to be pretty huge. But the other part that I thought was really interesting about and AI agents is we are very much looking at creating an AI centric UI so that an AI agent could use the front end and could use the app on behalf of their owner or on behalf of their director. And so AI agents and the future of AI agents is part of both the architectural design, including APIs, that type of thing, and also the UI design so that they can interact with our UI.
Jackie, you looked like you were about to jump in there. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like what I appreciate about this group is everyone's kind of got a hand in a different part of like the sandbox. And for me personally, I've been using AI to help people do really, really simple things. Make a nutrient dense diet plan, consult ChatGPT about like, how do I use avocados in my life, or like really, really simple, tangible things. But what was really interesting to me, I officiated my best friend's wedding last month, which was such an awesome and cool honor to do. But I was talking with a wedding planner, and my friend and her husband had really every single detail of this wedding was so gorgeous. I mean, it was vibe coding, like brought to life. Like I felt like the way they must have talked to the wedding planner and the florist, and I was like adding all this up, and like I knew my best friend's vision for this wedding and like getting that across to other people. And I was like, wow, this really is like, I was like, what if this wedding planner really used, vibe coding, and like you could produce so much to show people displays, like anything about what they want to do and generate that. So for me, just going with the whole meditation theme, like I remember one of the first quotes when I got into meditation was, it takes guts to make your mind the servant of your heart. And I think it takes all of our minds to make like AI our servant. I think people are actually really uncomfortable working with those like types of terms, but like I'm like, what is it, disc profile? Like I'm like a servant leader or whatever. Like that's like a natural role for me. So I mean, I treat AI really, I'm like, please, thank you, and like very nice with it. But I remind myself all the time, like this is a tool. And I did some deep research last year over people like developing interesting relationships with AI. And I'm not going to sit here and say they're healthy or unhealthy or this, that, or the other. But I do think people should really tread lightly. And especially if you want to start talking about other people to AI, there's this whole trend of using AI as your therapy. Like I didn't give you consent to use my name in our situation and things like that. Like there's just so many things we haven't even and oh my God, when you think about tokenizing that, and guess what? It lives forever on the blockchain now, buddy. I mean, like, there's just like crazy things, how this is really going to like proliferate. And which is why my meditation technique is based on like silence and no music, I just encourage people like, oh my gosh, please have a connection with your internal voice, because there are going to be so many other voices available to you. and like programming you. Like I really think that's the time period we're moving into more significantly than any other.
Jacki, I'm not sure if you said, I think you said you were maybe staying open, but do you have a chain in mind? Aussies is building on Solana for wellness. Do you have a chain that you're leaning towards?
Honestly, I've been following a colleague of all of ours, I think, Fernanda Bocard. She did her NFT project on Base, and she's been very like documenting the journey of that. In fact, I would tell anyone to look her up on LinkedIn. She has like a lot of great insight. And I think like for wellness specifically, Base feels really good because it feels very like tangible to my audience specifically that isn't very crypto native at all. So for wellness specifically, that would be like a really good chain, in my opinion.
Yeah, Base is fascinating. I'm a huge proponent of Base. When I think about the future, it's like Bitcoin, something like Ethereum, probably Ethereum. I have to bet, and then USDC on Base is just so clean. It's instantaneous, little to no fee, like actually free, I think, and so it's just like painless. Aussie, are you guys? Now I want to ask you. We're going to go back a little bit. If you're just jumping in, Aussie's building an index finfluencer platform where Jacki and I could come together and create a finfluencer, or Jacki could just have an index fund and say, hey, I'm going to put in these cryptos or maybe even these real world assets, and I could do the same. And then people could go buy, the Jarrett index fund, right? The GIF. So Aussie, what is you said you're going to launch in August. The way I see this, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's really going to be backed by creators and influencers. They're going to see this and it's going to be like the Twitch for them to really get ahead. It's going to be anyone who's talking about financial literacy, financial freedom, who's talking about crypto, who's talking about Bitcoin, who's macro, who's whatever. You're saying, you're trying to get to them. How many of the finfluencers are Web3 natives, and does that matter?
Well, right now there are a good portion of influencers that are Web3 natives. There's, especially with the proliferation of X in particular, the number of influencers on X has grown incredibly. The number of users on X in particular that have 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 followers is growing and grown exponentially in the last 2 years. And not only that, but we're not even just catering to those users that have 100,000, 200, 300,000. Even if you've got 3,000, 2,000, or 5,000 followers, this could be that perfect strategy for you as well, because not only you might not be able to monetize on YouTube or on Instagram or on X, but you have a dedicated community that's really cares about what you think and really believes in you. Well, you can still monetize that better than all of these ad generated platforms or ad supported platforms. And so that is part of our strategy. But in the end, we're not, while our main go-to-market strategy is about using influencers, in the end, we're looking at making this available and being compliant in a manner that BlackRock, Fidelity, or any of these major investment platforms, big banks, could use our platform for launching their index, kind of like the NASDAQ. You make your they come up with their basket. It goes up on the NASDAQ or on the S&P 500 or wherever. It goes on the New York Stock Exchange, and anyone whose front end broker allows them to access it can access it. Well, we're going to combine that front end broker, like Robinhood, for example, like you cited, with that back end and like New York Stock Exchange, and Fidelity creates it in the back end, and now it's available on this front end for everybody, for anybody in the world, rather than just those that have access to the New York Stock Exchange.
How does okay, let's just run me through the hypothetical. I have Future Signal. It's a little meta because we're on the channel here. And I want to launch something, and I'm going to make a Bitcoin only fund, right? So I'm going to have XXI that Mahler's soon to launch. I'm going to have a Fold app. I'm not sure if that's Bitcoin only, actually. just, a bunch of Bitcoin only products. Let's say I get a bunch of miners in there that, maybe they have a little AI in their portfolio, but basically a Bitcoin only. So I've got these 10 plays I want to put in. I put it in. How does it work? How do I get paid? It goes up by 50%, and over the next 3 months, it actually wouldn't matter how much the index grows. It matters how many people buy my index.
That's correct. So you, for creators right now, the fee structure is that there's a fee taken upon purchase and a fee taken upon sale of your index. And as a creator, you earn a portion of those fees. And depending on you as a creator, you'll have a range of what you can set your fee at, depending on maybe the level of complexity that goes into managing that index, or whether the index is considered to be very high performing, but because it's management heavy, you can alter that fee structure. And so you can choose. And so on the intake and on the outtake, a influencer could earns a cut. And this is all publicly very easy, like declared right on the front end for a user, so they know this is the fee on this particular index. X goes to the creator, X is for the platform. And that's currently how it's being run, although we are looking at management fees and how to implement that properly on chain. It's a bit more complex.
Aussie, I just have a quick question. You mentioned like X, and you mentioned like even people that don't have like a ton of followers. I mean, like, what if somebody was on like, are you thinking about any of the decentralized platforms like Nostr or anything, or?
Absolutely. We're looking at all of the decentralized platforms. I just reference those two because they're the most, they're the largest ones, but Blue Sky.
Is there a
Nostr,
minimum?
No.
Like followers? Okay, so you really could be anybody.
You could be anybody. We're, at the start, we are going to be actively recruiting influencers to be part of the initial offering. But once the gated access on creation goes away, we're going to open it up, and you could be just about anybody. And so you could even just build your platform entirely on our platform. Essentially, you could just be a really good strategist who sucks at making videos or content, but every time you release an index, it's always a top performer, and people can follow you as that creator and check out your other offerings. And that's going to be a way to really empower anybody on the platform.
It's a good way for people to really learn and understand like how important fractionalization really is. I think people have still not grasped that, and how that's going to change the speed of everything, of currency, of everything. I mean, so I think you're doing something really noble. It's a noble pursuit, Aussie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Aussie, this is incredible. Why don't we, Jacki's going to drop off. If you want to stay for another 5-10 minutes, I could talk to you about this forever. Jacki, thank you for hopping on, and we'll see you soon. I don't know. Will we see you?
Yeah, it's I'll be out and about more. LinkedIn people, it was good to see all your names coming through again. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity, and I'll see you guys soon enough.
Bye, Jacki.
Bye, Jacki.
Bye.
Thank you. Aussie, so so I launch my token. It's out there. You just alluded to the thing I think that's most important. In my life, whenever you're trying to get something to move forward, you have to create competition. I don't care what this looks like on any level. You have to create competition. So is there going to be a leaderboard? Is it going to be kind of like a CoinMarketCap where at the top you like see who's popped the most in the last hour, 24 hours, 7 days, and then you can just go through everyone, or how does it, how is it going to work? Because I think using CoinMarketCap is kind of a baseline that most people who are Web3 native or crypto native know what that looks like. When you go in the top though, I could see like a 1 hour, a 24 hour, and a 7 day. And then you just have the list of all the things. Is it going to kind of list like that?
So there's going to be an opportunity to list and sort that way. we're offering multiple different ways to sort the list of indexes or the list of products that are available, whether it's by TVL, so the amount of funds that are deposited within that specific index. So you can see, oh, a lot of people are in this one. It must be solid or stable or have a lot of support, or look at hourly, daily, weekly, even potentially monthly performance to see, oh, okay, these are the top performing ones in the last 24 hours, this last day, this last week, or this last month. And we'll be offering all of that so that you can sort and access the platform that way. And I see Grant asked a question on in the chat.
Did he really? Hold on. Let me bring this up.
Could you launch your DAO and have it on the fund? We are looking at implementing decentralized governance on indexes if you want to. So this is an optional feature that isn't going to be available at launch, but is part of the roadmap, is to, as part of that safeguard of, or as part of also building community, allowing you to generate an index, create an index, and then have all of those token holders be your DAO and have influence on how the index changes and how and or suggest changes or approve changes as part of your DAO. And so we are looking at embracing both legal compliance and decentralized communities with our setup.
Yeah, Grant has a question here that builds on what you've kind of said, and then I also have a question that builds, so half and half there. But let's go with Grant. Grant says, "What are the existing sources or existing repositories that kind of already exist?" Basically, what I think he's getting to is who are your current competition, who could be competition, and the thing that I always think about when it comes to entrepreneurship is what bigger bag can spend 10 million because it's nothing to them and create this overnight. Is that a Coinbase? Is that a Kraken? Is that something else? When you guys look ahead, and sometimes having competition in the market can be a good thing. So you're like, yeah, we have so much more value add than them, and they're more expensive, and we're cheaper, and we're more efficient. But what are the things that you see as like, okay, there's some other sharks in the pool?
Well, looking at competitors, it's kind of funny you were asking me this question because we were going through a little bit what's out there today as a team. And right now, the most obvious one is Reserve Protocol. It is on Ethereum. It has existed for a while, but a lot of their offerings are more stable currency based. There's not a lot of user creation is not really available. You always have to have a DAO format for index management. So they've got a lot of kind of negative, not necessarily externalities, but it's not a lot of flexibility or user empowerment. And in the same time, they don't necessarily share fees with any index creators. So someone may be the index manager, but they don't necessarily have the ability to earn or participate in that fee share. And who could go out there and do this right now with $10 million? There are people that could definitely. I mean, Coinbase and Kraken could build something at in this nature. That being said, they have to deal with a lot more SEC oversight compared to us and our platform, because they already have these huge platforms and everything that they're doing. They have to make sure they're going through everything in a compliant manner, and their ability to iterate quickly and kind of build to real product market fit is just not at the same scale that we would be able to do, or what we are doing at our current pace. We'll be able to iterate faster and navigate the compliance kind of channels in a different way because we're new compared to a large player.
So Grant followed up and he said, no, not competition. How will the value of a fund be calculated? Are there existing databases for tokenized assets? I want to build on what he's saying and kind of go to where I wanted to go. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting, and I'm forgetting the project that does this, but they do the quadratic funding where it's not just the amount of money that's put in to a place, it's the amount of people that put the money in the place. So what I mean is you could have an index fund. I have my index fund that has $200 million in the index fund. People love what I'm saying. But out of all those people, it's just two wealthy people that each put in 100 million because I talked them into it. Whereas your fund only has 2 million, but it's made up of thousands of people who have put in a little bit because they want to have access to the Aussie token. I think it'd be interesting to show both of those metrics. Obviously, yeah, the TVL, the amount of money that's locked up in here, but also like Aussie has thousands of people that listen to him. I just have two because I talked two wealthy people into following me down a tokenized rabbit hole because they're billionaires and they want exposure to this. Have you thought about that? And I know Grant's talking about the existing database of tokenized assets. I think he's probably referring to real world assets. But how are you thinking about the value of the fund? Because for me, if I'm going on a platform and I see that this guy's got 200 million, but really just from two whales, whereas this guy's got thousands. He's running his YouTube. I don't care if his YouTube only has 300. He is getting, maybe his gains aren't even enough, but he's doing something that I shouldn't look away from.
So that's actually a KPI that we're looking at integrating onto each index's panel. It's not going to be displayed on the main page because that just there's only so much data.
It gets too much. It's like CoinMarketCap. I wish it told me 3 things, not 70,
Yeah. That's it. So it is a data point that we've been highly considering displaying right there on the index page because we do think it's important. The number of people that are not just how much is in there, but the number of people that are doing that are putting that money in does definitely matter. And so that is something that we are. I don't know if it's in MVP or if it was a data point that we were adding in the next iteration of the UI. But to answer the how is the value of a fund calculated, when the index is minted and when a token is minted, there's a set ratio of the underlying assets that is tied to that token. So let's say right now each index launches at a value of $1. It's pegged to $1, and when that dollar is, let's say it's 3.003 SOL tokens, it's got whatever mix of assets, and based on the value of those assets, so that ratio will never change unless you rebalance it, and based on those assets times their price, that equals the price of the token. So if it's a basket of 0.003 SOL and 0.002 USDC, if SOL goes up, then the price will increase because it's the combination of USDC and SOL. And for accessing that data, we're using oracles to existing infrastructure and tech out there. Jupyter is one of them that we are using. We're accessing their data feeds as part of it, but we're also looking at using multiple sources of data feeds to make sure that our pricing is accurate.
This is super cool. We can probably talk about this for a while, and we may even continue off mic, but I do want to leave it here. We've cracked the hour, and I wanted to get to the hour. So, Aussie, we'll talk more, and this is going to be exciting. I also, before you go, I just need to confirm one thing. What is your X? Because I found the old Austin Rickley, but it still has a photo permissionless from 2023, and you use a different one, I think. I don't want to also dox you, so if there's another one, all I mean to say is I'm going to put everyone's X in the bottom here, and yours was the only one I wasn't sure on. So make sure you get me that. I feel like you have another X that maybe is private.
Yeah, I've got a private one that I haven't been crazy active on X, but I will definitely I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool. Well, Aussie, thank you for hopping on here. This has been great, and I'm excited to see more because I think there's like two things now the way I look at like the launch of any project. One of them is like you have to always bring value, right? Like there has to be something that you're solving, one, but two is the timing. If you can have a solve come out at the same time that the narrative is right, that's just massive. And I think tokenization is going to be the next 24 months on some level. And so you're going to be within that window as you start to launch this. So it's really exciting. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, listen to us on a podcast platform. Please go ahead and subscribe. Find us on socials at Future Signal XYZ. Aussie, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Thanks for having me. It was always fun chatting and talking about this stuff. So thank
Always. You will be back on.
100%.